Well, I think it's time to start. Welcome to you all. And before I am introducing the professor, Taichi Ono, I would like to give you some background of this event. It was Mamiko Fukuhara, who is also here in the call, from ELC Japan, the International Longevity Center in Japan, who reached out to us and asked us on behalf of GRIPS, the Japan's National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, if we could help with organizing a lecture on healthy aging and elderly care and the policies made in Japan. And Leyden Academy on Vitality and Aging is a knowledge institution with a societal mission to improve the quality of life of older people. And we are the representative of ELC, the Netherlands, and we are part of ELC Global Alliance. And we're always interested in international perspectives. So we are very happy that we can actually facilitate this, this webinar. And I think you all too are happy about it. A warm welcome to all the participants. As I already said, we have people from the Netherlands, we have people from Japan, and perhaps also from Argentina. I also would like to thank the support team because they have done quite some preparations. Ellen Plasmeijer and Niels Bartels from Leyden Academy, thank you. And also Aiko Kitano and Iba Ragi from the GRIPS Center. Thank you for investing time in preparing the program, in getting to know each other. Very well done. Professor Taichi Ono will be the main speaker today. And I would like to introduce him shortly to you. Professor Taichi Ono works as the Director of Healthcare Policy Concentration at GRIPS, Japan's National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies. And previously, he worked for the Japanese Ministry of Health and Welfare and as a professor at the Graduate School of Public Policy at the University of Tokyo. And we just learned from his colleagues that GRIPS is a large institution with about 100 professors, 200 teachers, and 400 graduate students. Impressive. Professor Ono obtained an MBA at the Berkeley University in 1994, and he is no stranger to the Netherlands. He just showed us one of his photographs he made when he was here on a trip with Leiden University on the picture. So he was here twice, and he talked to my colleague who was the executive director before me, Marieke van der Waal. So it's wonderful, Professor Taichi Ono, to have you here. Something about the program. Professor Ono will cover two topics, and the first topic will be on sustainability of elderly care in Japan and the Netherlands. And the second topic is about older people and the COVID crisis. And I will briefly introduce those topics and then give the floor to Professor Ono. And we will have some rooms for questions and discussion after each of the presentations. And the event will end around 2:40 p.m. Now, before we start, I have some general requests. Please mute your microphone during the session so we don't have background noises. This Zoom meeting will be recorded. And if you have any questions, please share the chat. Share them in the chat, because Niels Bartels will monitor the chat and will bring in the questions after the presentation. So if you have ideas, if you have questions, please put them in the chat and we can pick up on them after the presentation. Well, the first part then on the sustainability of elderly care. An important topic around the world, I may say. And last year, the Netherlands Council for Scientific Government Policy, in the Netherlands called the WRR, commissioned a study focused on the sustainability of elderly care and taking into account the lessons we can learn from other countries. And I worked with Patrick Jursen on this project, and we distinguished 3 dimensions of sustainability. The financial sustainability of elderly care. So is healthcare for the elderly affordable on macro level, but also is it affordable for people themselves on an individual level? The second dimension of sustainability is the quality of care and the personnel available and the quality of the personnel available. And the third dimension of sustainability we looked into is the societal commitment for the policies on healthy aging and elderly care. And by doing this, we approach this whole problem as a sort of wicked problem, a difficult problem which we cannot tackle just fixing things with easy measures. This is a wicked problem because there are so many stakeholders who are important, who have different perspectives on this complex issue. We have various dimensions, ethical, political, economic. There are several scenarios which can difficult predict, and this is an issue which is also interrelated with other complex problems like the emancipation of women, migration policies, economic development of countries. So it's a wicked problem that cannot be solved easily. We selected 4 countries: Japan, the UK, Denmark, and Germany, because they all have aging populations, but they have different welfare arrangements to support their older persons in society. And what we found was that it's really important to notice a balance between those 3 dimensions: the financial, the quality, and the societal commitment. If one of those logics dominates, like in the UK, you will get unrest, you will get outrage among people, and it will undermine the trust in the government. Also very important is that there is a long-term global vision, that your policies are anchored in the cultural and normative perspectives in the country. That will give stability. We saw that in Denmark. They have focused on community care for over 100 years. Since 1891, they have focused on community care. So that gives stability. It is anchored in their egalitarian and democratic view on how to work as a society. Now, there is not one solution for the sustainability of healthcare, but taking a long-term global vision and balancing those dimensions, these were the most important outcomes of our study. Having said this, I would like to give the floor to Professor Taichi Ono to further introduce us to the policies on elderly care and healthy aging in Japan.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for Professor Tineke Abma for the nice introduction to today's session. Yes, thank you very much for, as well to introducing me to the audience. My name is Taichi Ono. Most of the people, good afternoon, but some from Japan, good evening. Yes, I'd like to, start my presentation, but before doing so, I'd like to say some words for the appreciation for the preparation for Professor Abma Tineke, and especially for the Mr. Niels Bartels of ILC Netherlands for having this wonderful occasion. And my colleague from the ILC Japan, Mr. Shinichi Ogami and Mamiko Fukuhara, and many people in ILC Japan has helped to realize this event. So as Dr. Professor Abma said, we will have I have prepared 2 sets of presentation. Each will be about half an hour. And then after one first session, we would like to open the floor to everybody to give the dialogue, then continuing on to the second session, and then we will have the dialogue session. We will be organized as that way. So time is limited. Let me start with my first presentation, which is on the elderly care in Japan. Let's see. Share the screen. Do you see it in full screen now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So let me start. Okay, this is the title, Elderly Care in Japan, History, Challenges, and Solutions. Starting with a map of Japan, sorry, in Japanese only. As you can see, we are quite a, kind of a stretched country to north to south, and also very mountainous. As a characteristic nature of the being mountainous is should be quite different from the nature in your country, the Netherlands. And relatively many people are living in a kind of concentrated manner in a very small plain areas. And in the rural areas, we can see this kind of this is a picture of the paddy rice field, and beer farming is worked there. And this kind of difference of landscape, urban rural difference is what I hope that you should understand about understanding our society in general. Different aspects we do have. This graph shows the trend of aging in Japan and compared with that of your country, the Netherlands. Left-hand side is the percentage of population 65 plus, right-hand side 75 plus. As you see, the speed of aging of our country is quite rapid. And now we are counting more than 1/4 of the population is over 65. And actually, it is not shown here, but before that, in the case is female population, more than 30%, 30% is over 65 old. So very super age society. About historical background, I give you this picture showing the dependency rate, i.e. the number of the child and 65 plus old as of the working generation, as well as the transition of the economy. This red graph shows rapid growth between 1960s and middle 1990s. Then stagnated for about 2 decades, and now it is a little bit gaining again. About the dependency rate, because of the lower number of birth rate, dependency rate declined. But we do have about 30 years of the plateau time where the decrease of the number of child is offset by the increase of the elderly population. Between 1960s and about 2000, year 2000, we remain, the dependency rate has been flat. But we started to increase because of the continued depopulation by the lower number of children and realizing of the longevity. I have added the age of the baby boomers here, who were born between 1947 to 1949. First baby boomers. They are the center of the aging population now. So when they were child, Japan was still a poor country. They have experienced rapid economic growth during their working age population. Once they are getting old and come to know that the age, the retirement age is coming to close, the economy has started to stagnate. So they have living in the dramatical change of Japan as far as the economic perspective. They also the social aspect, especially the change of the family style, is also significant. When they were child, the three-generation household was a social norm, like this picture. But when they get married, they have come to Tokyo from that rural areas and come to Tokyo to find job. They have established a nuclear family, getting married. And the family, the social norm at that time was the family of the father, the man is a sole breadwinner, and wife stays at home, and 2 children. And of course, many of the elderly people who live in the rural community stays there as their children, but some come to live only by themselves. Now we have seen the further progress of the aging and the smaller number of children. And the couple, younger couple, both wife and husband works is a social norm, and fewer number of children. Because of the longevity, elderly lives alone increases because of the passage of their spouse. So this dramatic change of the social norm is also that the baby boomers has faced. Because of the increase of the elderly living alone, we have now seen the problem of loneliness or solitude among the elderly, or it is called the death without no one to take care of. Such kind of matter is also concerned in Japan as well today. Next slide is the history of the policy. In 1960s, we have achieved universal health coverage and public pension coverage. And in 1963, Act on the Welfare of the Elderly was assembled. The background of the establishment of such a welfare law was that the social notion that the elderly are regarded who are weak and who are isolated, living in the rural community, which is left behind from the prosperity of the urban areas, such as Tokyo. To enrich at that time's notion, the welfare of the elderly, the policy of free medical care for the elderly was established in 1973. It was welcomed because the healthcare became free for the elderly, but it created the incentive for the elderly and their family members to stay hospitals unnecessarily long period of time because it was used, the hospital beds has been used as a kind of a surrogate for the nursing homes, for the institutions, welfare institutions. So the occurrence of the issue of social hospitalization was seen in Japan in 1980s. To improve the situation, these two investments the gold plan and the new gold plan. This as a massive investment to enrich the provision of the welfare services for the elderly, both institution and in-home services. The enrichment of the such service provision was made mostly concentrated on 1990s. And to fund such investment, the introduction of consumption tax was made in Japan in 1989, which was actually unwelcome by many people. But at that time in Japan, we have introduced it. So backed by the establishment of the social infrastructure, we have introduced the public long-term care insurance scheme in the year 2000. After the establishment of long-term care insurance scheme, you remember it is a time of the economic stagnation and the progress of the super age to the super age society and lowering the birth rate. So at that severe time, that this comprehensive reform was made in Japan in 2010. Their menus are children and child rearing policy, investment for medical and long-term care services, improvement in public pension, and fiscal sustainability. It includes the raise of the consumption tax rate. The focus of the investment was, of course, the children and child rearing, because the decreased birth rate was a major concern in Japan at the time, which kind of is a kind of which might create a silent crisis to the existence of society overall. So the investment was heavily made on the children and child rearing policy. Of course, the economic concern, the difficulty of the situation of the working generations because of the changing labor market that most of our country has experienced, such as the increase of the non-regular type of employment or the kind of like the Uber Eats type of business or something like that. So behind that notion, the investment was heavily made to the children and child rearing policy. I will talk some about the policy changes of the long-term care insurance later, but it is associated with the increase of the consumption tax. From now on, I will focus about the long-term care insurance, comparing your country's WLZ. It used to be the AWBZ, comparing it with our long-term care insurance scheme. There are some similarities seen between our schemes. First, I think, is a shrinking coverage for long-term care insurance scheme. In your country, I have learned that you have established the so-called scheme of the WMO in 2008 to separate some, life support services to the projects or the menus provided by the city government. And you have further modified the scheme to separate, to detach some of the services from the long-term care insurance to other schemes such as WMO or health insurance, ZBW. In Japan, we have established the so-called the community support project, which quite resembles your WMO scheme, shifting some support services for the elderly with lighter level of disability to the project held by the municipality government. So which is, such kind of a reform is very similar between our two countries. Second is limiting the scope of institutional care. I have heard that in your country, former 1BV to 3BV, who are the relatively lighter level of disability, and they became ineligible to be admitted to the institutions, elderly care institutions. In Japan, in 2015, the use of the intensive care homes, which is one of the types of the elderly care facilities, use of such facility has been limited to relatively heavier disability elderly only. So such kind of a change has been made. Thirdly, the encouragement of the mutual help in the community. In Netherlands, I've heard that and I have heard by visiting your country, we have chatted that I have visited your country twice. I have heard that the enhancement of the support projects by volunteers or community support organizations has been aggressively pursued in your country. And supporting team, such as social bike team, is now working as a kind of a community organizer. In Japan, promotion of the concept of integrated community care is come to be promoted in 2010s. And integrated community care in Japanese, it implies the integrated community care for the elderly only, but it is now kind of upgraded to what is called the regional cohesive society, to be a more inclusive, to make the society more inclusive to anybody who has issues or who has concerns in your daily life, not only for the elderly people, but for this somebody who is kind of a handicapped people or a single parent family or other people who have some concern to the in our society. So common ideas and premises for the elderly care policy we are sharing. First, elderly care is financed by the social insurance program. We do, both of our country is facing the limited fiscal capacity. You see the financial resource of that the government has is limited. So we have to prioritize the use of the such cherished finance. Thirdly, transition of services for mild disability people to community services and prioritization of the use of the long-term care facilities, as I said. Fourth one, active use of community organization. Fifth, aiming for the philosophy of self-first, support first, mutual support system, and support by social insurance and support by public finance. The enhancement of the self-support or mutual support is what we are now sharing. Or finally, the cooperation among professionals of various backgrounds aiming for the district management. Your concept of social bike team and our concept of the integrated community care is the notion to enhance such cooperation among the professionals of different backgrounds to work together within the community. Now, I will talk about the elderly policy in general, not only confined to the long-term care itself. And this is showing the guideline of measures for the aging society. This is a cabinet decision made in 2018. Once in every 10 years, it is prescribed by the law that the government must assemble this kind of guideline to cope with the aging society since it is, I think it is 1990s. There are three basic principles shown in that guideline. But what I think is the most important is the notion of the age-free society. And this concept, which I will elaborate some further, is what I think is the key word to make our aging society as a kind of a brighter one. This slide has been prepared by a professor from United Kingdom, and she made a presentation at the, I think it was at the Prime Minister's Office Cabinet in 2017 to explain about the changing lifestyle in the super aged society. It used to be like the left-hand side, something like left-hand side, a three-stage model: education, then work, then retire. But at the kind of age-free society, she advocated that we have to change the way of thinking, that if life is filled with the opportunity for the mouth stage, and it will, be a kind of it is not something like ordered manner, like it used to be. But even in the elder age, your later stage of life, you can have the opportunity not just retire, but to engage in various activities to show your ability and will to the community. Such idea was kind of introduced at the time. And at the same period of time, in 2017, Japanese Gerontologist Association or Gerontological Society has advocated to change the definition of the elderly people as aged 75 years. It is currently defined as those aged 65 and over. It becomes a social notion. But they said that and due to the longevity, people come to be more, physically fit. On the left-hand side, you see the speed of the usual walking speed and grip strength, both of the function. This is only a few examples of the various their studies. But compared to the previous years, elderly people are physically more fit. With kind of scientific fact, they have advocated to change the social idea that when you reach 65, you are old person and you must retire or something like that. Such kind of advocacy for the importance of the social participation by the elderly has been recommended for for some periods of time. It is one of a recommendation from advisory committee to the government. When it was made in 1975, almost half a century before. That our people at the time said that we have to pay more attention to the measures for the social participation for the elderly, not only from the perspective of earning money, but also reflecting the increase of elderly isolated from workplace or family due to the progress of industrialization, etc. So they said the importance of social participation. And they say becoming active in the elder age of your life is not necessarily associated the necessity of earning money. You see, the social participation itself is something meaningful, something that gives the fulfillment of life to you. Such kind of idea has been advocated in more than 40 years ago. And this word, productive age. This is, the notion that has been commonly shared by our International Longevity Center network worldwide. And this is being claimed by Dr. Robert Butler, founder of the International Longevity Center community and global network. And he's advocated this notion. He started in 1980s, almost the same time as the governmental recommendation that I showed you previously. By saying productive aging, Dr. Butler wanted to say, no matter how old you become, no matter how you lose your ability, physical ability, you can be productive being in the society. And you can be an important existence to the others. And he was aggressively conveying that message. And many people around the world have joined that idea And now we are now having this good global network. By the way, this has been the picture. This is the picture having made by the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare in 2015, showing the concept of the integrated community care, image of the life cycle of preventive long-term care services. These activities to have the kind of mutual support has been advocated to be realized in many communities around the nation. And they are saying not only the social welfare corporations or the corporate associations, cooperative association, but also the private companies, any type of association in the society, and should take part to be a member of the community to realize this kind of a mutual support services, and to to live and to let the many of the elderly people live in independently in the community with dignity. And what is advocated aggressively is that the elderly themselves should be the participant of those who will provide the services to your friends and your neighbors. That will be a good way to not only to support the people, but to provide the elders themselves and the opportunity for socializing and connecting with each other. That will enrich the life of the elderly people, and to show their ability to the society. I don't think that this kind of picture, this kind of idea will not be a panacea, or they will not solve everything and every problem. As Professor Abma Tineke said, that the issue of aging policy is quite complicated and intertwined, and different, the stakeholders has different view. But I think it will provide one solution to one aspect of our society. That if we were to realize this kind of a society around the nation, our society will be a little bit more warm-hearted compared to today. Last slide of my first session is showing one press release by the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare in September last year. What is written here is that the 43,633 elderly will receive so-called Centenarian Award 2021. There are 86,000 plus people aged 100 and over nationwide. Now, once in every year, this Centenarian Award will be provided to the elderly who reaches age 100, and it is getting more. Such kind of society is what is unimaginable, I think, for people living in maybe half a century ago, like the 1960s and 1970s. And they were dreaming of the society where many people could live longer and healthier. And I think the age, realizing the longevity age and the realizing the longevity society is the dream of the people, But we might feel the problem first. We might think about the issues associated with the longevity society first. But I think to do it is a dream that the people has been dreamed of, and the humankind has been the dream of. And I think we have to change our kind of mindset that the accumulation of the creation, of the accumulation of the problem solving might change our mindset, that we can, from the bottom of the heart, cherish longevity. I think that is what I wanted to say in the first set of slides. But anyway, I think I hope that the participants can have my slides. And there are some reference and some kind of detailed comparison chart of the long-term care policy between our two countries. So if you are interested, please take out this later. So I stop here for the first part. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Taichi.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Perhaps you can stop sharing the screen so we can see the participants and have a dialogue. Thank you for this very passionate presentation. I really like what you said about cherishing longevity from the bottom of our heart. I think that says something about being ourselves age-friendly. And there's often so much fear and terror around aging and an aging society as something that will swallow us, or and you really kindly put forward the notion of how older people can enrich society. So thank you for that. And I know there are a few questions in the chat. And Niels, perhaps you can launch these questions, and then we can have a short conversation with Professor Ono. Niels, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. We have an interesting question coming in from Mr. Frans van der Oudera, and it regards the topic of immigration. And the question from Frans is there significant immigration in Japan?
Okay. Yes, I think I should say no, to the degree that your country is now experiencing. We do our border control has been slightly and gradually open to the immigrants to mainly from some other Asian countries, but it is quite limited. And I think it was loosened a little bit. I think it was in 2018 or 2019, and we decided our policy to change our policy to be more open to the immigrant. But immediately after such change, this COVID crisis has happened. So for about 2 years, such a move that more immigrants coming from other countries is kind of stagnant in Japan recently. That is a kind of immediate response to your question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ono. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe another question from Patrick Jurissen, and he says, could Professor Ono say something about the total cost per year for a stay in a nursing home?
Okay. Let's say total cost for per year. Let me say about it actually the long-term care insurance pays reimburses the most of the cost to live in a nursing home covered by long-term care insurance, and it depends on the degree of disability. I think it is about 350,000 yen per month. It should be about how much in euros? Like 250 euros. Yes, 2,500 euros equivalent paid for the most severely disabled people per month stay. So you can multiply it by 12, then you will get the total cost. But other than such a reimbursement, the people need to pay the extra fees to have some kind of amenities in that nursing home. So it is not so cheap. And I think the scheme is designed so that the elderly people who receives average or the ordinary amount of public pension. Of course, the public pension amount depends on the the working history of the elderly. So, but the kind of average people can stay in that nursing home, and it is how it is designed. About I think it is about maybe 30,000. Yes, I think it's 30,000 euros per year, maybe. About, yes, that might be a total cost. Yes. But I think, let me check with the details later, maybe, to have a, yes, better, answer to that.
We are paying close to 100,000 euros a year.
Oh, 100,000 years.
100, yeah.
Is it out of pocket?
No, that's the total cost.
Total cost. Total cost.
Around 10-15% would be out of pocket.
I see. I see. Oh, well.
So it seems to be a substantial difference.
Well, yes, I think the nursing home, it depends on the grade of the nursing home. Of course, housing, and there are, kind of a difference in Japan as well. So, I think it might reflect the difference of the, the price or the difference of the, kind of the unit cost for the ordinary houses between our two countries. So it might show the stagnant economic condition of our country as well. Might be.
Niels, I think we have some room for some more questions. So go ahead.
Excellent. We have a question from Ms. Florine Kruse. And her question is, how far does Japan invest in innovation and technology? And do you believe that investing in technology can be the answer for making long-term care more sustainable?
Yes, actually, I wanted to show some aspects in the second presentation about the use of technology that is realized in Japan now. But to answer to your question now is, I should say yes and no. Yes, I think it will save the kind of labor force work. I think I wanted to say it later, but and nowadays there's kind of sensors placed in the bottom of the bed mat, and to notice that the elderly is awake or sleeping. It will save the time and work of the healthcare workforces, the nursing care workers there, and it will enhance the productivity at the nursing home, which will be a solution for the nursing force shortage in Japan. It is a yes aspect, and the no aspect is, if we were to invent new technology, there are many, social norms will be adjusted that they will take such kind of technology for granted. So if you may, kind of save time for one thing, we can, we tend to think about enriching the other aspect, and that might incur another cost. The people's expectation will become higher once we know that we come to use more technologies. And if the technology were to save time, such saved time will be spent on other purposes that might incur the additional cost. So I think there are both ways we can say. But I think that they are for the currently the Japanese government is pursuing the aggressive use of technology to cope with the issue of labor force shortages. And I think in that aspect it will work. And that is my understanding. Okay.
We will come back to the technology later on in your second presentation. I have already seen you have some nice examples. Niels, can we have one last question, please?
Absolutely. We have an interesting question from Hetty Willemse, and she is curious about the housing in Japan's aging society. I know it's a big issue in the Netherlands, housing for older people. Can you perhaps elaborate on that?
Yes, I should say that many of the people are owning their own house. So I think the housing market might be different in your country and the country. I think the owning a house is a kind of a social norm for the generations, such as the first baby boomer generations, and the sons and daughters will be inherited from their parents. But those who are out of such kind of social norm condition, renting the house, for the seniors who need to rent a house or borrow a house from the real estate business, and they are facing quite a difficult condition because the owners of the rental house or the apartment for rent does not want to rent their house to the elderly because of the fear that the elderly might lives alone, might pass away, and that real estate will not be a favorable option for the next renters. So the price might go down because of happening such a kind of event. So therefore and also the issue of becoming frail and becoming senile, demented, and that might cause they are concerned with the fire might occur or something like that. So the elderly lives alone who are oftentimes they are poor and they don't receive good public pension, and I find it very difficult to find the rent house to live. And it is a significant problem in Japan as well.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, thank you. We will now start with the second part of the program, which will focus on the corona pandemic and how that has influenced the quality of life and well-being of older people. And as I already said in the informal introduction, one of the colleagues of ELC Japan, Daisuke, and I have been engaged in a qualitative study with several countries around the world: Canada, Japan, Singapore, Brazil, the Dominican Republic, Iran, and the Netherlands are working now for, I think, 1.5 years on a qualitative study to understand the experiences of older people. And what we have found across the different countries is that one of the effects of the crisis is that older people have been treated as a homogeneous group, a group at risk, repeatedly portrayed as being vulnerable, with stereotypical imagery, and this has accumulated in the Netherlands in several media and television programs where people were depicted as doorhout, dry wood. One of the influencers said, for example, we are saving 80-plussers who are too fat and smoked. How much economic damage are we accepting to save people who will die anyway within 2 years? And later on, this was repeated again by someone who said, why can't we protect older people in order to help the rest of the country to live their normal lives? Older people were just set apart as a group whom we should isolate from society. And no wonder that many older people could not identify with that. So that was one of the impacts of the Corona crisis, and I think we have found this in the various countries, this ageist attitude. Another thing we saw, and not only in poor countries, but also in very prosperous countries, that we saw a focus on the acute care, especially at the beginning of the crisis, where the focus was on hospitals, on intensive care, and only much later attention was paid to the long-term care, the staff and its residents. For example, the personal protective materials were arranged for the acute care. The staff in long-term care only received the leftovers. And this was even worse for those workers who didn't have a fixed contract. So as a result, many people in the nursing homes died. And this reflects a hierarchy between the care and the cure, which is embedded in a history where we still endow more value to the cure and the medical doctor who saves the lives, who is a heroic figure, a model that fits very well the infectious diseases, but we're now living in a society which Professor Ono calls super aged, where people have chronic diseases. And so this hierarchy is no longer suited and appropriate. We also saw the closure of nursing homes, which led to unrest among family members who felt that they were not included in the decision. It was a top-down decision made by the cabinet that the nursing homes were closed. So there was a focus on the safety and the protection of older people, and well-being and social interaction was underestimated. And I must say we have learned from that. But those two aspects I wanted to bring to the fore. So the ageist attitude, as well as the focus on the cure instead of the care, long-term care. Those are no, that's what we have seen in the Netherlands, and I'm very curious to hear Professor Ono talk about what you have noticed in Japan. So I give you the floor again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor, for the introduction. I share your concern that the COVID-19 has affected various aspects of the society. It is we are no exception to that. So what I will talk for the next session is might not be as bright as first one, but let me try to show even small aspect of light for the brighter future. I hope I could be contributing some to that aspect as well. Let me start my slide. Okay, do you see it in full screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So impact of COVID-19 crisis on society and the elderly in Japan, issues and changing daily life. My talk will cover three aspects. One is a recent situation of COVID-19 itself in Japan. And second, the issues that were concerned. And third is a research for the change of the life of the elderly and the society in general in Japan. Let me start with the public health explanations. As you may have seen, this is the famous WHO homepage showing the global situation of COVID-19 crisis. Due to the occurrence and the proliferation of the so-called Omicron variant, the daily infection number is a record high globally. It started with only very small mountain in the left bottom part, starting from Wuhan, China. And we, Japan, are belonging in this Western Pacific region. It is the same with China. Let me bring another graph. And this is the number of newly infected cases in Japan. We are experiencing first, second, third, fourth, and fifth wave. And after the occurrence of the fifth wave, it was occurred in summer of last year. We were enjoying almost 3 years of cease of the wave. But now we are facing the upsurge of the Omicron variant, and we are experiencing that sixth wave of infection now. On the left-hand side, you see the number of positive cases by gender and age. And right-hand side, you see the cases of death of the same graph, age and gender. Positive cases are significant among the younger generation, you see on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you see the cases of death is concentrated to the elderly people. So 70% plus is about 80% for male, over 90% for female. On the left bottom part, you see the cumulative number of positive cases. It actually was reported just a couple of hours ago that our number of positive cases has come to be counted as 2 million. And cumulative number of deaths is around 18,000. This is a kind of graph, a complicated graph, but these orange mountains shows the newly infected cases that I have shown you last graph. And these green dotted lines are the vaccination rate among the elderly people. It is around 90% now. And these purple lines are the vaccination rate for the entire population. It is around 80%. Actually, we were late for the start of the vaccination because of no domestic vaccination producer was unable to create the domestically made vaccines. We need to import it from Europe and the United States. So the start was late. But due to the prioritized vaccination to the elderly people in May and June and July, I think it is said that it has a positive aspect at the fifth wave of last summer by the percentage, lower percentage of elderly as total number of infected, as well as the number of serious cases were relatively suppressed during that fifth wave. That is, quite various, the so-called Delta variant. Last public health slide, and this is the COVID-19 stringency index. You might have heard about that. This is a composite measure based on 9 responses indicators, like the school closures, workplaces closures, or travel bans, etc., to the degree of stringency of the restriction to the civil life, the life of the citizens, compared country by country. As you can see, except in the later period of last year, our stringency remains lower compared to your country. Such tendency is the same with compared with other G7 countries or other, major Asian countries like China or Republic of Korea. So our, one of the characteristics is that our law is not so strong. Our stringency has been relatively low. Like we don't have any lockdown clause, total closure of one area or one city. Like some country might have such kind of lockdown clause, but we don't have it. So we are now, of course, we are now asking for the cooperation for the shops or restaurants to close early or not to offer the alcohol drink or something like that. But generally, our stringency is weak, and it is debated that whether we should keep such kind of a relatively weak legal authority, or we have to change our law, modify the law to make it a little bit stronger. It is a matter of debate now. But you can see, you may be, after my presentation is over, you can just put Tokyo Crossing Live and Google search, and then find YouTube videos, the live videos of the Tokyo's, some district. You will see that I think I guarantee that the 100% people are wearing masks, although it is not mandated by the government, but people are wearing masks. But you can see the difference for the somewhat queer scene of our streets at this moment by doing this internet search later. Let me go to the second part, issues that were raised. From now, I have to talk something depressing, something not happy. But we have to explain the reality that our society has experienced, and it might be common to your society as well. These are the issues noted in this fundamental plan assembled by the government in March 2020, about 2 years ago. And that issues that were concerned from the social aspects. And there are 5 issues mentioned. Consideration for the mental health due to the prolonged observance, and issues such as domestic violence, sexual crime, and assault and child abuse. And balancing the information disclosure and human rights. Thirdly, bankruptcy, unemployment, or even suicide by the refraining of operating business, economic suffrage. Consideration to the life of the elderly living alone or single-parent family who tend to be socially isolated. Fifth, securement of health promotion, nursing care services, so as to prevent elderly from getting more afraid during the period of self-refrain to go out. So these are the concerns raised by the government and the social aspects of society in March 2020. These graphs show the change of degree of satisfaction in life after COVID-19 pandemic in health and in the aspect of health, connection to the society, and joy and fun of life. Compared to 2020, to what degree your life has changed. Those female population and those in the middle-aged people, 40 to 64, and those who lives in 3 metropolitan areas, urban areas like Tokyo, has felt their negative feeling by the decreased connection to the society by this COVID pandemic. For the elderly people, joy and fun of life has been decreased. Endurance of refraining from social life by people, use of train station. And as I said, our stringency for the people's activity is relatively loose. But instead of that, people's voluntary cooperation to refrain from being active is essential to seize the pandemic. This is a graph showing the use of train station by counting the number of, this one, you see right upper side. You see, I don't know how to say it in English, but counting the number of use of train station. First, we have experienced 4 periods of the state of emergency first period was April and May 2020. And before pandemic, people has 70% minus of the use of train station, which means that people refrain to go out and to be socially active. But second, third, and fourth period of state of emergency, which has taken place in 2021, people become less kind of a cooperative to the promotion by the government. People come to less willing to cooperate to refrain from social life. As you say, the frustration of the people has increased, and economic suffrage also might have affected to the change of the behavior. Another negative indicator for the economic aspect. This is a transition of the number of households receiving public assistance. Public assistance is a menu of the Social Security to support basic living. In simply said, it is providing cash to the very poor people. It is associated for the household comparison. Starting from around April 2020, category other household who doesn't have any kind of a typical condition for becoming poor. Their recipient receiving the public assistance has gained since April 2020, which is the indicator of the economic hardship among the people in general. And disruption and discord caused by fear and anxiety. Actually, it was quite concerned. Such phenomena might happen. In 2020, Japan Red Cross has created a YouTube video, and this is an exception from the reporting such YouTube video, and you can see it later by googling this one. But it says such video shows that fear is in everyone's heart. So let's encourage each other. Today, let's do what we can do each places. It is to encourage the feeling that we have to fight the virus. We don't have to fight with the people. At that time, people were quite scared. People might discriminate those who have infected. But they are trying to try not to not the people think in that way. Another aspect, actually in the second wave of the pandemic that we have experienced in the summer of 2020, there are many clusters occurred in the nightlife districts. At that time, the governmental committee has reviewed the activities in that second period, and they said summarizing the 5 important points. They have worked relatively well, but they are saying that let's have the communication with the people working in nightlife district. Let's build a mutual trust of the people working there, and let's consider about the discrimination and prejudice that they might face. So people working in nightlife districts are prone to the prejudice at the society. Maybe they might be in a weaker position in the society. So the people need to understand their difficulties who are sharing the same society with us, and their importance of communication was stressed at that time. Various concerns for the life of the seniors. This is excerpt from the white paper on the health and welfare, and they are asking the question, what is concerning for the elderly people to the service providers of the long-term care insurance covered services, like the daycare centers or the home health services, shop owners. They are saying, and they are concerning about the reduced frequency to go out and socialize by the elderly, reduced activity of daily life, ability to recognize, reduced satisfaction due to physical activities, as well as the increased burden for the family caregiver. And because some of the long-term care insurance covered facility services need to stop the business for a while, if somebody who is working there or who are the users there might have infected with COVID-19, you have to stop the business for a couple of weeks or 2 weeks. At that time, they are concerning about such kind of situation. Actually, the investment to the elderly care facilities or to support to continue their business has been made by the government. And this is explaining the supplementary budget of the fiscal year 2020 in Japan. And the government has assembled this emergency comprehensive support grant. Of course, the 2/3 went to the medical care services, but 609.1 billion yen has been spent on the long term to support the long-term care service facilities, such as purchasing the protective equipment, etc. This kind of investment, this money has been used. And thirdly, I'd like to say something about the research for the reform. It might show some positive aspect or positive change to our society, even under very difficult situation that we are experiencing now globally. Enhance the internet literacy among the elderly. On the left-hand side, you see the graph comparing the situation of the use of the internet by generation compared to 2010 and 2019. Compared to 10 years ago, even the elderly people come to use the internet. But some elderly shows this kind of attitudes on the right-hand side, internet phobia or internet dislike. Like my mother, who often calls me to help her to use how to use this internet. And she's fearing that one click might lead to the kind of the, some kind of crimes that they are debited some money from her, her bank account, etc. She often calls me. But increased use of internet is seen even in Japan. This is a comparison of 4 countries. Japan is lowest, but even so, the use of internet as a communication, the tool of the communication has been proliferated more compared to the pro-COVID era among the elderly people, even in Japan as well. So it might be providing them another way to communicate with the other people. Second is the use of technology for elderly care. Some of the colleagues has raised a question at the first session. And the upper part showing the use of this avatar robot. This is kind of a, like the code situation. It is not a real human, but showing the pictures of the family member and chatting via this avatar robot and the elderly people. And of course, it will never be never be a replacement of the actual meeting and communicating associated with hugging, holding hands, etc. But it is said that the granddaughters or grandson living very far or even in a foreign country can visit the elderly at nursing home easier by the use of this kind of technology. On the bottom part, we see the ordinary scene of the dance lecture on the left-hand side. But unfortunately, due to the proliferation of COVID, they have to do it in online on the right bottom part. the use of technology has been, proliferated. This is the second aspect. I should reiterate that it will never be the replacement of the actual physical contact or physical face-to-face communication or physical social gathering. It is, kind of a confined, way of the connecting in touch. But it might provide another option for the elderly. It is better than nothing. And some are, showing their creativeness to enrich these tools, communication tools, as humane as kind of with their heart as possible. Thirdly, the creative ways to enhance the social participation and communication. On the left-hand side, you see the visit, and this lady is a city official. She's bringing meal, lunchbox to these elderly people, and she's asking what's going on here, and how's their life there? Do you have any concerns, etc. For the meal delivery. This is an example, another example shown by the ILC Japan report, and it will be forthcoming. And one, volunteer group who used to gather the people for making lunchbox for the elderly, that such gathering was ceased because of the concern for the COVID-19 and the clusters. So they have recommended the volunteers to be the chatting volunteer rather than cooking volunteer, and find a way to enrich the community, the communication with the demented lady who lives alone. Another way of showing the creativity among the people is that this City of Suita Social Welfare Council. Social Welfare Council is a quasi-government organization associated in the association in a small community, a city level association. And they decided to deliver the letter by the university students and together with their newsletter, monthly newsletter. And they also enclosed the envelope to for the elderly to send a reply letter to the university students. And this, invention has established the new way of communication between the younger generation university students and the elderly people who lives, who might be living alone or living in an isolated situation. So even the limitation that we are facing under this difficult situation, some creativity has been shown in various neighborhoods in Japan. Actually, the importance of creativity, the word creativity, is I have learned from the visit of your country, Netherlands, twice. I think it was in the 2016 and 2018. Or 19 and 2019, 16 and 19 twice. Anywhere I visited in your country says they're stressing the importance of the creativity for the such kind of mutual support services. So that is the concept that I have learned from your country. By the way, the fourth part that I want to say is showing the resilience of the elderly themselves. Of course, some people cannot adjust their life to this COVID situation, and some need extra help for them, that they might feel isolated and living alone, and they are concerned with the fear that they might get COVID. But several people suggest the reduction that many people show their resilience, many elderly people show their resilience and adjusted their lifestyle to stay healthy and stay connected with the society in a different mode compared to the previous ones. It is a report written by actually my research mate, Dr. Nakajima, at the ILC Japan's report, forthcoming report. And I have learned from her report that many elderly are engaging in that kind of activity. Of course, we need to spend enriched care to the elderly people who are very handicapped and who get very senile. But majority of the elderly people are those only with the small support. They can show their creativity in their life and they can enrich their life by themselves. So the stereotype toward the elderly who are weak and need help, it is such kind of stereotype stays, remains still, but I think many people are showing by themselves that such kind of stereotype is something that we can change in coming days after COVID as well. So let me close by introducing some Japanese characters and start the dialogue. And these are the Japanese characters. These are the Japanese characters meaning, and this is imported from China. And the upper part of character means human. Lower part means move. It is that what we have imported from China, the meaning. The pronunciation is different. But sometimes, or in quite rare situation, Japanese has created their own character by connecting two Chinese characters. This is one character. This means on the right-hand side means work. So human plus move means work. And this work character also have the meaning to encourage. So our social notion implies to work is to encourage somebody to do something. So such a notion is implied in this Chinese character. Last slide. These two Chinese characters are also imported from China. Each means together and cooperation. This shares the same pronunciation, kyo in Japanese. And then I will bring the same character in the previous, I have shown in the previous slide, encourage and work. And together with these two characters, association of these two characters means one word. Together, encourage and work, cooperation and encourage work. And it shares the same pronunciation as kyodo in Japanese. I think I may be too much optimistic, but the spirit of kyodo, and the importance of the spirit of kyodo, and together encourage and work cooperatively, is what we have learned from throughout this pandemic situation in Japan. And this kyodo word is a key concept for us, that our longevity society might be a little bit brighter than what we imagine that it will be. So now I stop here. Then let's start with the communication. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you again for this wonderful presentation with a nice ending after highlighting some positive aspects of COVID, the increasing rate of digital literacy, all kinds of creative ways to encourage social participation, and also the majority of people who are resilient. So that is giving us hope. We would like to open the floor for the participants. If one of you would like to ask a question about the second lecture, please raise your hand or unmute yourself. This is the chance to talk to Professor Ono. So if you have questions about the second presentation, go ahead. Elena.
Yes, thank you very much for wonderful presentations. I would love to ask you a question, but connect also two presentations, because it's about gender differences and about the role that Japanese women play in care, in long-term care, informal care, and also about what you said in the second presentation, that among female Japanese, the negative impact is stronger than among male. At least this is what I've got from one of your slides. So my question is, first about informal care, I know, if I'm not mistaken, that informal care culturally is usually provided, or was usually provided, by women within the families. On one of your slides, you showed now within families, both partners work. Do you have any policies or public debate about it? Does it mean that informal care now is not provided by daughters-in-law, as it usually was? And back to the second presentation and impact of COVID, do you see any connection between this negative impact of female and this double pressure of working and performing some care during pandemics? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for asking me that question. I should have stressed the importance of that aspect for the establishment and for long-term care insurance, as well as the current COVID pandemic. To answer your first question, yes, one of the motivation for the establishment of long-term care insurance was to kind of ease the burden of the family caregiver, which is mainly dominated by women at the time. Of course, now still the majority of the household caregivers are women, but if the change was seen, because one change is the more people are using the external services with the kind of the by the using the long-term care insurance cover services as a basic right for them to exercise. And the second aspect is the it used to be that the wife, daughter, and daughter-in-law, and these are the three groups of people that are taking care of the elderly people in the house. But currently, the order is wife, daughter, then son. Son comes the third. So a daughter-in-law's share is now decreasing. That might be another aspect that has changed. And I think the yes, the smaller size of changing lifestyle, the changing social norm has affected some, but still the majority of the household caregivers are women. Of course, it might be because of the women live longer than men, so the old man gets senile faster, sooner than the older women. That might be the reason, but I don't think it is only the reason. But still, the social norm exists in Japan that women are the dominant role of the family caregiver. But change is also seen in Japan. That is my perception. But my colleague Japanese participants might have a different view about that. And the second, to answer to the second question, I think yes, it is. There should be a connection of the double pressure of the care and the work burden onto the women, especially for the single parent household, the single mother household. They are always facing the difficult condition of the double burden of taking care of the children and sometimes their elder parents and work. And and this economic distress has, kind of their working condition has made it more has been made more difficult. So that might affect in that way, and even those working couple, because of the enhancement of the at-home work online, husband stays at home all day, you see, and that provides the frustration for the spouse, the wives, who has to stay at home with their husband all day and take care of them, and he's not, actively engaging in the like the child care activities or other activities. That might create another tension, and that is, commonly said. But I haven't seen the kind of formal research about that aspect. So in that aspect as well, I think my Japanese colleagues can help me with the more inputs. But anyway, that is my understanding. Thank you for the question.
Frans, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. And one of the comments that stayed with me was your comment about the resiliency of elderly people in the face of this whole challenge, and the contrast with the sort of the stereotype of the challenging person. The question I was going to ask, you showed us an example of an experiment on intergenerational experiments for improved cohesion between society in the society. Do you think these experiments are just incidental experiments, or are these now carried out countrywide?
I think some of the some of the topics that I have raised, the examples I have raised is the incidental still, but I think it is introduced in the white paper by the national government, and the idea is that there are many such kind of buts for change is now growing up from the earth, maybe in anywhere. And the governments are collecting the samples of such, presage of change and try to proliferate it in the nationwide. So I hope, I think it is still the incidental, but I hope that it will be a nationwide phenomena in a few years. I hope it will, the time of such change will come.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At Leyden Academy, we also try to stimulate intergenerational contact. And one of the latest projects is on older people dancing, inviting younger people to imitate them. And one of our colleagues is here also. It's not so easy, but it's wonderful to see older people dancing and being so active and having fun and enjoying themselves. And that alone sets another image. Niels, you have a question, yes, or an idea?
I have a question myself. I was wondering, Professor Ono, as yes, the elderly are such a major demographic group in Japan, are they in any way involved or consulted in the policy making in the COVID pandemic?
Yes, I think they are. Yes, they are. I'm not sure whether there's a kind of a direct communication, like the kind of open dialogue between the policymakers and the association of the elderly group. But I think because of we are democratic society. Democratic society means that those who have the majority have the power and the influence to the politicians. Listening to the voice of the constituent by the politicians, and naturally means listening to the voices of the elderly. in many districts of Japan, especially in the rural areas. So I think there at the same time, I think the groups of the lobbying power of the who are representing the like the elderly care industry might have a stronger influence compared to previous years ago, because they are they have such a significance, the presence in many districts of our country. So that kind of a directly and both indirectly, the elderly's voices are heard and influenced to the politicians, I think. But I think I should add that such kind of the influence by the elderly sometimes associates with the frustration of the younger generation. The younger generation might feel that the politicians are listening only to the voices of the elderly, and they are not concerned about us because we are the minority and we are not, our voting attitude is not so, the representing well. So such kind of things might happen. So that might be, I think, what I fear. Such kind of intergenerational confrontation might take place in Japan. That is, I think, what I should. I want to, adamantly stop that. But did that answer your question? Thank you.
Niels, shall we do one last question from the chat? There are some questions left, so I would say we have one more
I think
question and answer.
A nice, more general question from Ms. Saskia Danen, who said, in my opinion, Japan is ahead of the game when it comes to staying active and being part of society for as long as possible and paying attention to fulfillment. What tips do you have for the Netherlands?
Well, I think actually my impression is that we are learning from Netherlands. And we want to ask the same answer to you, actually. So I think what I have explained, and you may will learn from my colleagues from the outputs of by the outputs of ILC Japan to Netherlands. You will learn what we are doing in Japan, and you might be able to pick some aspect of our society that we can learn. That you might be able to learn from us. But I want to say, I'm sorry to maybe the time is over. But I'd like to say about the connection with the younger generation and the older generation. What I was surprised to see in 2016 when I visited a nursing home in your country, Netherlands. One nursing home, they are inviting younger generation to live together with the elderly people. And they said these younger people are the kind of talk mates or chat mates with the elderly people and help each other. So they try not to let the, like the nurse candidates or the doctor candidates students live, but the measuring other areas to be not in a place of practice, but in a kind of society. I was surprised to see that scene in your country, and I have learned a lot from your country as well. So, see their different aspects and seeing the different experiences or the different activities in different country will provoke many ideas or hints for reform, I think. Is it okay?
Thank you. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Unexpected coalitions is what comes up in my mind. We have to close this, this session. Thank you for your inspirational and excellent presentations, which really gives us an insight in your country, the policy. I was struck by the slide where you showed how the life of the baby boomers has changed over time, how they started with these big families and now are confronted with living alone and seeing their families becoming smaller and smaller. We will share a short questionnaire with the participants in the chat. This will be done by Niels, and it would be great if you could take a few minutes to give us some feedback on this webinar. We always like to learn how to do things better. And this was also something asked by the Japanese friends. I think that this webinar has shown how fruitful it can be to set up an international exchange between countries that are dealing with aging or super aging societies, how they can inspire each other, how we can learn lessons from each other. The notion of a free age society is something that is still in my head. What does that mean? And Japan has such a lot of experience with also, I think, solutions we not have come up with, and vice versa. I like to take with you the notion of changing our mindset, cherish longevity from the bottom of your heart. I think that's something we need to practice. And also in the spirit of Kyodo, I don't know whether I pronounce it right, but the idea of work and encouragement, staying active, not for the salary alone, but for fulfillment in life and well-being. You very nicely brought it to the fore, Professor Ono. Thank you all for your participation, and I wish you a good day or night, depending on where you are. So, bye everyone.
Okay.